Alright, so just to get this out of the way, we're just going to give this a second to let everyone join. And, hello, Riley. So, yeah, we're going to give this a second for a couple people to join. As you can tell by the background, we have some serious stuff to talk about. Some good, some bad, and some quite unfortunate. Not unfortunate in like a dark circumstance, just unfortunate in terms of like a disappointing kind of stance. So, alright, give it a couple more seconds. Hello there. And alright, I think I'll pick it up from where I believe where most of our minds are set at the moment. We gave it about a few hours for everybody to. I'm going to give it a few minutes and I'm going to start asking for people to join because I feel like giving some insight on this would be a little bit helpful. So if you're willing to stay in here for a little bit, I'm going to think about getting people to join. Okay, so it's been a few hours. We've had a little bit to sit on this, kind of think, wrap our heads around this. But so the 2023 Indy 500, let's start from the beginning and work our way. We not even take the green flag. Graham Rahal stalls the motor on the start, and they have to wave him into the pits. He ends up going 2 laps down to fix a battery that went dead. And then it's a fairly clean race. We have Catherine Legg wreck on the pit road, ended up breaking a suspension piece. She ended up retiring later, a couple laps after that. Then we had fairly clean from there. Bunch of lead changes between Rinus VeeKay, Alex Palou, Award, Newgarden, all those people. And then we got to Stingray Robb, who ended up crashing after going side by side with Graham Rahal in turn 2, I believe. Crashing and retiring, obviously. Then we had R.C. Anderson retire due to a mechanical issue. And then about 50 laps later, we get to around 17 to go, is where we start seeing some of what I would like to say all complete utter hell breaks loose. At this point, desperation is beginning to set in. Oh yeah, Roman Grosjean also crashed out in this race. Rinus VeeKay and Alex Palou crashed on pit road as well. But with 17 to go, we did see a pretty violent looking crash, which is actually what you see in the background. That is Kyle Kirkwood upside down. And what happened with that was Felix Rosenqvist was following Newgarden into the corner. And I guess he knocked the wake off of the air, got him sideways, he hit the wall, ended up breaking a big part of the steering arm of the car, lost control, spun right in front of traffic. Kirkwood ended up getting clipped, which sent one of Kirkwood's tires flying over the catch fence, flying over the grandstands. And flew over the grandstands and ended up landing in a parking lot, landed on somebody's car and denting that. I actually did hear that Doug Bowles, the president of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, actually did tow that car. They gave the lady whose car it was, they actually gave her a ride home. They gave her an all-exclusive, I think they let her walk the track. Actually, there's a photo of her kissing the brakes, so I do believe everything's on good terms with her. And that's good to know no one was hurt with that. But I still don't like the fact that that can happen. And I know there is tethers to those wheels, but it's just certain circumstances of how that wreck happened, and it's just one of those 1 in a million chances. And I've always said this, there's nothing you can really do on some things. Obviously, you can make the race cars safer, you can make the walls safer, you can make the catch fences higher, but some things just happen, and there's really nothing you can do. And bad things just happen. There's some things you just can't avoid. But we did get lucky today. No one ended up getting hurt, which was great news to hear. Kirkwood ended up flipping pretty hard, actually. He got out with a car, got cleared from the infield care center. Rosenquist ended up getting out as well. He got out, he was okay. And then we get our first red flag. And I say first with a big amount of enthusiasm because it's not the first time you're going to hear me say red flag today by a long shot. So we get into that red flag. That's about 10 to 15 minutes, and then we go back racing. This time we have about 10 to go. And we go down the backstretch halfway through the green flag restart, and Pato O'Ward decides to try and make a pass going into turn 3 on Marcus Ericsson, the defending winner from last year, and ends up spinning the car, ends up getting airborne. Thankfully, the car didn't start to climb over top of the safer barrier and go into the catch fence. So thankfully, we didn't happen to accidentally see another Robert Wickens type deal, or potentially something like a Mike Conway to his less severe extent. And Scott McLaughlin ended up getting into Simon Pagino. They both ended up wrecking. Well, I believe Pagino ended up wrecking, but McLaughlin just had some nose damage. And Augustine Canapino, they didn't show too well what happened with him per se, but they did show the aftermath of what happened to him. He had a left front tire. It was actually off the ground. So he had broken a suspension arm, probably from contact with another car, and he ended up slamming into the back of Pato O'Ward, getting airborne, landing on top of O'Ward's car, nearly flipping over. Thankfully, he landed on the tire of O'Ward, so no one was hurt. Everyone in that incident was fine. All of those guys got cleared. So Augustine Canapino, Pato O'Ward, all those guys are all right. Then they go red flag. Understandable. These first 2 crashes, I understand. With Kirkwood in the tire, he had to make sure everyone was okay. Obviously, he had to make sure no fans were injured. I really respect Indianapolis Motor Speedway for making sure all the fans were all right, all the drivers were all right, so they had to throw a red flag for obvious reasons. Second crash, maybe not as serious, but there was still a hefty amount of debris. So they threw another red flag, and we're set up for probably a 5-lap shootout. And we're looking like we might see, to a lesser extent, something that happened last year. How we have a 2 to go shootout. Well, this time we're going to be a 5 to go. So we go back racing, and then we don't even make it to the green flag. They wreck coming out of turn 4 on the restart onto the front stretch. Right before pit road, Benjamin Peterson, Graham Rahal, Christian Lundgaard, and Ed Carpenter ended up wrecking. Benjamin Peterson being swiped across and going across the field, and Graham Rahal, just being an innocent bystander, gets involved in that as well. And on a side note, Stefan Wilson was at the track today, so I'd like to give my condolences to him and my thoughts with him as he still recovers from that back injury he sustained on Monday practice last week. And for some gosh darn reason, IndyCar decides to throw a red flag. Now, this is where I do believe things may have went a bit overboard. As obviously they tried twice to get a green flag finish and it failed. Now, there is a common misconception but that IndyCar fans hate when the race ends under yellow. Obviously, we don't like it, but it's not something that we're going to be, up in arms about. Oh, it's the end of the world. Or, like with Texas a few months ago. That ended under yellow, and, well, the race itself was amazing. And, obviously, they had to end that under yellow. There was a big wreck on the backstretch. And with this, the front stretch was covered. It was it was 5 to go. But we would understand. That's just racing. Not every race finishes under green. So what they decide to do is hold them for 2 laps under green. They go 2 laps under green. And we're thinking, okay, they're probably going to run this out. And with 3 to go, they call a red flag. They send everybody to pit road, shut the cars off. Excuse me. And then they throw the red for about 15 minutes. And then they send them back out to do a 1-lap shootout. Now, One thing I do think they mishandled was that. I feel like it should have ended under yellow. I'd have been fine with it. Guarantee a lot of other people would have been fine with it. Definitely could have avoided potentially causing another accident. Thankfully on the one-lap shootout, no one got hurt, no one wrecked or anything. But it's just kind of dangerous trying to create something for the sake of television on the greatest spectacle in racing for one of the most fastest cars that race on this planet. And I do respect them trying to entertain the fans, but at the end of the day, you don't want to risk people's lives on this. Now, thankfully, everyone was okay in this. Now, on the one-lap shootout, Marcus Ericsson, the defending winner, was leading, led all the way out until the exit of Turn 2, and Joseph Newgarden, the only driver that has been with Penske a long time not to win the Indy 500 at the moment. He ended up getting by Marcus, defended like a winner should. He defended him gracefully, and he held him off to win. And I give full 100% props to Justin Newgarden. Raced a clean race. Did what he had to do to win. He played his cards perfectly. Honestly, he played him just like how Marcus Ericsson played his last year. And we have Indy Next driver Daniel Nielsen Frost in the chat. Thank you for joining that. I'd like to hear your opinions if you have any on this race, as it was certainly an entertaining but crazy one. And from ending the race, we do understand why they would try to give us a green flag finish, but at the same time, it's kind of borderline nuts. But at the end of the day, that's how racing can be, and that's how it was. So if anyone has anything, I can start answering questions in the comments. You guys can start asking me things. I'll start answering you guys' stuff. So leave me something in the comments. I'll talk to you guys about them. Now, one thing I do want to mention is the fact that at the end of the race, they did the celebrations. Marcus Ericsson made some comments saying that the racing was overall unfair. Now, I don't want to say it was unfair, as it so much wasn't as unjustified. As it wasn't justified at all. Because trying to do a one-lap shootout with already having two massive accidents, and it's a miracle they didn't have another massive crash after the third red flag. And the finish ended up being overall respectable and a very clean one. I just overall hope they don't do this again. Because if next year happens to be a same style race that this was, I feel like it could tarnish the legacy of this. With Newgarden's Indy win, would he be the only driver to win the Indy Lights Freedom 100 and the Indy 500? I actually do believe so. And I can actually look that up. Give me 1 second, I can. Now, I do believe he is the only... Because I know Colton Herta's won it before. Colton Herta won it in, I believe, 2017 or 2018. Well, honestly, Herta hasn't won the 500 yet. Now, this was Team Penske's 19th win at the Indy 500, and it's actually, 2018 Colton Herta won the Freedom 100. This was actually Team Penske's 19th overall Indy 500 win, is actually their first win with the Aeroscreen kit. Because in 2019, they won the last race without the Aeroscreen. In 2020, they did pretty abysmal. 2021, they did pretty bad as well. And they did alright last year, but they didn't do as usually what they would be expected to do. Yep, because Joseph Newgarden won the race in 2011. And that would make him the only driver to, so far, as Ed Carpenter, Colton Herta, and Oliver Askew are active drivers. Oliver Askew not as active as he was. But those are all active drivers who have also won the Freedom 100. And as it stands, Joseph Newgarden is the only one to win the Freedom 100 and the Indianapolis 500. So that is another thing to notice. And it's also something that I feel like Newgarden can finally get that monkey off his back. He's finally won the Indy 500. He's finally done what everyone's been chasing for, or what he's been chasing for. Because he's always been fast there. You come there every year. Like last year, he topped the second session on the test days last year. And he topped the afternoon session this year on the testing. And he was actually consistent throughout the whole month. And that's one thing I do get over is Team Penske, that overall this race was terrible for them. Will Power wrecked out with a broken toe link. Scott McLaughlin was involved in that wreck with Pato O'Ward, Augustine Canapino, and Simon Pagenaud. And Newgarden just overall drove a great race. Stayed out of all the trouble. And just got through it cleanly. So if you guys have any more questions, I'm about to get off here. And I just figured I'd let you guys know my reviews on it, my stance. I just kind of think a little bit of it was unnecessary. I do believe it was too chaotic. I don't believe that there needs to be... I don't believe that there needs to be manufactured drama in this race, as this race already, for how prestigious the name of the event is, for how prestigious the race itself is, the history of it, you don't need to manufacture a good finish. You don't even need to manufacture a story. The story of itself is it's the Indianapolis 500. And no matter the outcome, no matter how you got there, you won the Indy 500. And I just believe that to guarantee a green flag finish is a little bit unnecessary, because obviously you're not going to get one every time. As with 2020, we saw that perfectly in case of 2020. With, I believe it was the 45 car of Spencer Pigot actually hit the inside attenuator on the pit wall. They didn't red flag that. They ran that out, and I think that was 3 or 4 laps. And there wasn't anything, I believe there was a NASCAR Cup Series race at Dover, which obviously wasn't going to get much attention due to the Indy 500 being on. But it seems like even with Rogers' ownership, they care more about safety then, so I was just really shocked to see them really drag this one out. I do believe it took almost an hour and a half just to finish 17 laps. Because with 3 red flags, honestly, I'm not going to say it was embarrassing, because it wasn't embarrassing. It was just a bit shocking to see them do it. And I really hope they don't ever do this again. And with the tire incident, there's only so much you can do. Obviously, they have tethers on those wheels. And unless they make something stronger to be able to hold them onto, or you can just say it was just another one of those freak deals that just happens to happen every now and then. So, I hope you guys have enjoyed the entire month of May coverage here on IndyCar Central. And if you're watching this on YouTube, where I will eventually upload this, I do stream these podcasts from time to time on IndyCar Central. That's IndyCar, lowercase, underscore, Central, lowercase, all combined, on Instagram. And I do upload weekly coverage of testing, paint scheme reveals, news reveals, practice results, testing results. And I post those to my best extent to whenever I have the time to. It's not on a schedule, it's whenever action's happening. And I try to update you on the most I possibly can. I know a lot of people don't cover the lower series. I like to try and get that out there as well to you guys, like the USF Pro Championships and the Indy Next Series. So, I'm Brandon Rutter with IndyCar Central, and thank you for watching the third episode of the IndyCar Central podcast, first episode of the 2023 season. And it looks like someone has unfortunately joined as I am ending this show. And thank you all for watching. Here's to race week as we go to Detroit for the new Detroit layout this Sunday. Good night, folks.